that, we'll just proceed into first action item. Application for use permit, Albert Park Stadium baseball field for professional boxing event, September 14, 2012. Can you give us a briefing of
I'll give you background and information about this particular request, and then we will ask Paul Nave to supplement with information that he'd like to have about this request for use of Albert Park. And then it will be an opportunity to comment. We're here tonight basically because the city manager's office has asked the commission to conduct some public process around this particular application. And by way of background, you know that Albert Park Stadium was built in the early 1950s. It has a capacity of 800 in the stadium seating area, and over the years we have added additional seats along third base and first base lines to create more seating capacity. But the facility itself accommodates 800. The facilities include restrooms, there's locker rooms, the stadium seating itself, dugouts, a batting cage, and then there's some limited storage there. We use the storage primarily for city equipment and records. And the parking for the facility is shared with this building, the community center, and then all of the other associated uses with Albert Park, which includes one of our big users, the Bocce Federation. So in the past, we've hosted, and we are hosting professional, semi-professional baseball, baseball levels from high school, college, Little League on down. And we have also on the opposite end of the facility from the baseball field is the softball field, and we conduct softball leagues for adults primarily. We've had collegiate teams play there. College Wayne Dominican College has used our facilities, high schools use our facilities. And then we also have used the field in the past for specific volleyball events. We have a grass volleyball tournament that we do twice a year and have for many, many years. Other than that, we have some very exceptional uses, one being Davidson Middle School graduation, which happens on the usually the first or second Thursday in June at one time event. And we have had events, well, when Packard Park opened, the Giants held an event there, and occasionally we have hosted Little League opening day, where the parade ends up in Albert Park and the Little League teams sit in the stadium while they do kind of their opening ceremonies. The stadium and the field are managed by Community Services Department, so we do all the scheduling, and the Parks Division and Public Works Department does all of the maintenance. Last year, Mr. Nave applied for the use of the stadium for a professional boxing event, and as you are aware of the process, that application was denied through my office. I denied it based on compatibility of the activity with the existing facilities. That was appealed to the city manager, and that's as per our municipal code. It was a public hearing where the city manager presided with the city attorney and the city clerk in attendance, and there was a number of folks who came from the community to speak. The appeal was denied at that level. And then the appeal process went to the city council. I just want to check my notes, make sure that I'm getting this whole list of events correct. The city council on June 6th upheld the appeal, 4-1 vote, and staff was directed to help create an event management plan for the professional boxing event, and to work with Mr. Nave for its successful execution. And I think we did that. We worked closely with Paul and put together a plan that included contingencies for parking and utilities and garbage and restrooms and noise and seating and setup, cleanup, those kinds of things. There was approximately 900 in attendance. This was on September 16th, 2011. There were, and by all accounts, when I surveyed the various departments, the police department and the fire department and others that were involved, Department of Public Works, really the event went off without a hitch. There were, however, complaints about the noise. We see that from residents in the neighborhood. When we described, when we responded to those complaints by saying that this was a one-time event, that was on the basis that the council had approved the use, people understood and really were more tolerant of the fact that the noise had been a disturbance for that one evening. We heard through the subsequent hearings that we held with San Rafael partners about the professional baseball use of the field, we heard more complaints about the noise level of the boxing event as opposed to people were concerned that that would be the case for the baseball use. And again, we reiterated what we were told was that it was going to be a one-time event, and that was not going to be an issue for folks. This spring, and it was in April of this year, Mr. Nave submitted an application that's attached to your packet for another boxing event, and by the application it sounds like it's almost identical to what happened last year. Requesting Friday, September 14th, to hold the event basically from 6 by the time gates open to about 10:30, with some auxiliary time involved in setup and cleanup. Again, beer, wine, and food will be sold, and in addition to the stadium seating for 800, 3 sections of chairs are proposed to be set up around a temporary boxing ring that's installed over home plate area of the baseball field. The field lights would be used, and there will be provisions for additional restroom, garbage service, and that kind of thing. The city manager has requested that the commission take a look at this application because the overall perception was that it was an exceptional use last year and not a continuing use. And they're asking you to comment on merits of the application and make a recommendation to the city council. Basically, from the city point of view, there's 4 points that we would like you to consider. And one of them is that, I think I've touched upon, that the 2011 event was promoted as a one-time. I think a lot of the verbiage that was used in the appeal process was once in a lifetime. And in part, we think that that's what the assumption of the community was. So in conducting this hearing, and we're very grateful that folks have shown up to participate with us, we're hoping that you get a better sense of how the community would feel about approval of this request. And second, virtually the only complaints that we got about the event were about the noise. And most of that, as I said, came to us through the next process when we were considering the professional baseball use of the field. And so we recommend that if you're inclined to approve the application, that we take a look at some measures to reduce the noise levels. The system that we use now for baseball was supplemented last year to be more conducive for a boxing event. We know that we know what the character of the public address system is that's installed in the stadium. We would suggest that we start there with that system if you're inclined to approve and recommend the application, and then see if we can work with Mr. Nave to make that acceptable and serviceable for the boxing event. Since the 2011 boxing event, legal action against the city was brought in connection with the use agreement with San Rafael Partners, and it called into question the use of the baseball park and stadium for events not related to what's considered current levels of baseball and softball activities. There was insertion in that action that environmental review was warranted. The court ruled in favor of the city, but there's another action now under appeal. So we're suggesting tonight that the commission determine if the proposed event is appropriate for the Albert Park facilities to satisfy that issue. If this particular activity is equitable with some of the other exceptional uses beyond baseball, softball, volleyball. If you find so, then we suggest that you recommend. And then the fourth issue is one that's not directly related to tonight, to this particular agenda item, but we have a system that works very well for us as we are evaluating baseball, softball, and volleyball use of this field. 90% of the uses, probably 95% of the uses out at Albert Park are those types of activities. We process applications just over the counter, and the staff is able to advise users on the proper use of the facility. If we are to entertain that the stadium is appropriate for other uses, I would suggest that you seriously consider putting together a policy so that all of these types of exceptional uses can be judged by the same criteria. Of course, we won't do that tonight, and I don't suggest that we hold up the process as we respond to Mr. Nave, but I would suggest that in the future we can get that developed and vetted in the public and inserted into the other use policies that apply to parks.
All right, thank you, Carlene. All right, as we proceed into the public aspect of it, I'm going to ask Mr. Nave and his representative, if necessary, to give us about 10-15 minutes of your overview of your application. How many other people would expect to speak on this? Give you an idea, just think. Okay, so we've got about 6 or so. If I could ask you to kind of now formulate your comments and kind of keep it to 3 minutes, that would help the process. So with that, Mr. Nave, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. For those who don't know, my name is Paul Nave. Lived here my whole life, 51 years old, professional fighter. I thought I would go over a little bit of history, just so the facts as I know. I did request last year. I requested to have this event that went on last September 16, 2011, and I played softball here for 33 years, and I always thought it'd be really cool to have an event here under the lights. They had something similar, wrestling years ago, big fundraiser. Old Ford was a wrestler. They've had volleyball tournaments, other things other than just baseball, and I know it was going to be, it would be, how do you say, sanctioned and supervised by the state of California State Athletic Commission. So it's a very professional thing. At any rate, I figured like anyone else, I would go to the events coordinator Brian Auger, who does events in the city, and also talk to your direct department. And we spent about a month talking about any problems and how we can, anything we might need mitigation, the noise, the security of the park, and all those type of things. And looked like there wasn't any issues. And at the time, Carlene was on vacation. But when she came back, I looked it over, and I don't know her office or the city office, but anyhow, it was denied at that point without really, I never got a chance really to air any of my mitigating circumstances or the opportunity. And I asked to come before the park director at the time, but per Rob Epstein, I was told that at that time, once I was denied by Carlene, the rec department, my appellate process was through the city manager, Nancy Mack. I think she was acting at that time somewhere close by, whatever she was from. Anyhow, we went for Nancy Mack. Well, I thought we had a lot of people there. I thought it was a great meeting. anything she wanted to change, we could mitigate. The police department was there. At any rate, a few days later, after she met with Alvaro and the meeting after that, because I waited an hour and a half. I wanted to make sure that they gave me the city take 2 days per their own rules. Because I felt frustrated, and to be honest, and I can apologize. I came in here myself last year upset that I was being treated so differently in baseball. Certain things with the neighbors, they were using against me, the way I felt, and ignoring it when it came to baseball, and we should be treated the same. And I understand it's a different type of event. That's why I had major security, which was wonderful. And that's why once I looked at all the security, once to go to jail. But anyhow, that's what had happened. And subsequent to that, we did get denied by Ms. Mackel. It was a great meeting. I believe we were talking to Al at the time. I know Al was concerned about the baseball field was where we might mess it up. I think we set the table for it. As I said before, I did support the baseball, and I was hoping that certain things, just like what I want to talk about later, things that can mitigate if there's any issues with the neighborhood. I'm sorry to talk so long, but I just wanted you to know exactly what happened. Subsequent to that, I was told that was really the end, the city manager, but then Bob Epstein saw some pulse with the city or code that looked like they conflicted, so he said, yes, you can go to city council. And at the city council level, they really had to do, as they say, they affirmed it and approved it. And I did get, after that, an approval, so you know, 4 pages I can show to you. I mean, I basically did for one night, 3 hours and 15-minute professional boxing day, what the baseball did for 45 home games. And there was studies, and there was traffic, and security, and parking, and everything. And I'm happy to do that again for one night, 3 hours and 15 minutes of the actual fights. What I wanted to mention was, it went well, and I had told him, I am the one that said, not the council, I was the one that said, you know, I just want to do this one-time event, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I had said one time is because I supported the baseball, and I was under the impression the baseball came in from reading the newspapers last year. The baseball for Alvaro was boxing, I mean, it's not boxing. It was baseball after dark, and it was every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night for 45 home games, and that was my understanding. And that pretty much took all the weekends, and that's the only time really for the boxing. Plus, downtown too. That's one other thing, by the way. When we had the event, I've talked to Ches at St. Paul Joe's, talked to David and Bobby Day. I heard at Grapevine, you know, all the main restaurants were packed solid. And that was one of our things that we want to do, is give this to the town downtown. At any rate, the event, I thought came out without a hitch. It went very well. We had major security, which was the key. I'd always said from the beginning, once they started the fights at 7 p.m., that the fight would go 3 to 3.5 hours. We had the support of the Park Neighborhood Association last year. I had the support for parking across the street at Seagate. I have that again, Seagate support for parking. It's free parking. That makes it real simple for people to come right across the street. I understand today we have formal support from the University Park Neighborhood Association that we have. Anyway, from all standpoints, everything went wonderful. There was one issue that came up, and I'm more than happy to rectify that, do everything I can, and that was the noise. It was a little noisy, and they got a call complaining about noise, and I think what would alleviate, we have a couple options. I'm happy to use it at the time when I walked with Gary Burns. He wasn't sure the system they had would be appropriate to use. They haven't used it in a long time, I guess. And so we made the call, just hire someone to do our own to make sure we don't have an issue with the sound for the fights. At any rate, what happened was there's 4 speakers. That's the whole system. It was this guy's DVD thing and 4 speakers. 2 speakers on both sides and face inside to the grandstands for the people in there, about 700. And then we had 2 speakers back to back that just went out. But the problem was those 2 speakers that were turned away ended up going through the valley and causing the problem. And one of the reasons that we had talked possibly, whatever, we put one behind second base and shortstop that day, and that was kind of the original plan, and pointing towards grandstands 2, which would take care of the people there. And there was a possibility about liability because someone trips over the cords and we were going to have to run to the speakers. Just to let you know, I'm happy if it's hard to utilize the system now that they're using for baseball, and also I'm more than happy to turn those other 2 speakers the opposite direction, and we would use a battery pack and a cordless or a minimal wire instead of big heavy duty wire or something. And so that was really the only big problem we had. I mean, everything else was wonderful. People came to me and said, "Should you do another one?" And I was one who said, "Well, no, the baseball's going to be there." And that's why as time went on, I don't know if it's because 2 other teams fell out and they got new teams and they had other teams in Hawaii. There's all kind of weekends that were open. And we first looked at August 31st. And anyhow, I went to Carlene, and she was nice enough to tell me everything she heard. It was an absolute wonderful event, and told me, congratulations. I do taxi for the low-income elderly during tax season, so I'd seen her then. And then when I talked to Gary, gosh, I heard her not every weekend, maybe we can go again. And he said, "Sounds great, talk to Carlene." Carlene thought originally, great, go talk to Gary about a date, and everything looked wonderful, and it went good last year. And again, I said we can do whatever it takes to minimize the noise, turn it down, turn the speakers, whatever. At that point, I started to make little plans, and then I was going to make my what you call formal request in writing. And I talked to Carlene one more time and said there might be an issue that it came back that they voted, the council, they voted for it, and this is my understanding, that they had voted for my event because it's a one-time thing, is what I understand.
Well, I would say that not because, but with the understanding.
Okay. But okay. Anyhow, I just when I spoke about it, so I thought the word for word that they voted because it was regardless. Okay. And just to let you know, I spoke with 3 out of the 4 city council members that voted for it personally, and all 3 of the ones I spoke to said that's not how I voted for it. And one of them said I didn't even catch that part one time. And just to let you know, so the only other person who could have said he voted for it because it was a one-time thing, which would have been Al Gore, who I haven't spoken with. And it's kind of unfortunate in life and politics, and I'm not blaming them, but people say one thing behind closed doors, and another thing publicly. And to me, I was there, and I remember distinctly, Al was, I think, the one against me originally, but at I don't know whether it was because I had the votes or he saw it different, but during the meeting of the city council, he did support it, and he said himself, said he was impressed, and the reason he's voting for me is because I got the Bristol Park Neighborhood Association support. That's what he said. So not that it was a one-time thing, but I understand they felt that way, but that's not what he said. But anyhow, I'm asking. One last thing, and it's in one of the during the appeals from the city that my type of thing did meet what the current condition or use of the park. It's been used before by Go Destroy, like I said, the wrestling. They basically had a same exact boxing run on the field. And just so you know, that night, every little thing was down. All the chairs were off the field, behind the gate there. They picked them up next day. All the ring was down. Anyone could use it next day. He had 2 extra bathrooms for a day. I myself, a couple black guys, but the next morning, with a friend of mine, walked the whole field. We had people that were doing garbage duty, but I made sure myself, that everything was clean. And I walked the whole park lot too for a tea gate. And I think I picked up stuff that's been 20 years in the bushes. But anyhow, everything was wonderful and clean, and I was really impressed too by our crew. And so, long story short, I think that we should get another opportunity. I understand too one other important thing. After talking to Carlene, where it said might be an issue, and I put in the formal request, well, 2 weeks later, I finally got a call back from Carlene. And originally, just so you know the facts as I understand them, it was, well, Paul, we're not, because I asked her, is that what you're telling me? She said, we're not denying you, yet we want to make new policy. And I said, well, does it make sense? I put in a phone request right now, we have policy. I said, I have a 4-page criteria and basically policy that's specific for my event. And it had gone well, and it's the community that wanted, that a lot of people ask me, it got to be great to do another one here in the summer. And so that's where they came from. The subsequent to that original, the 16th, where you told me I had to wait till I made the policy, she did get back to me, and later, and I think it was 2 more weeks. But anyhow, saying, well, now they're not going to make you wait. There's a new policy, but now it's supposed to go for the Park and Rec Commission you guys will make a recommendation, and I also have to go over with the city council regardless of the recommendation. So that's okay.
Well, thank you very much, Paul.
Okay, thank you for this.
Paul, is the applicant, do any of the commissioners have any questions you want to direct to Paul about his application?
I-
Is that yes?
Hey, Paul,
Yes.
just a quick question. Now, do you see this is going to be continuous use if we move forward with this?
Well, I just want to let you know, this is from, this, I fought last year, and just to let you know,
I was there.
What's that?
He was there.
I was there.
Oh, no. But what I'm getting at is, I get this, I don't understand the relevance, but, well, why don't you use the Civic Center? Or, you know, he's making a lot of money. To let you know, those little events cost $45,000 to $50,000 to put on. And there's major medical insurance, liability insurance, and it goes on and on. The fighters' purses, referees and judges, 5% of it goes paid to the city. By the way, the beer and wine is for a nonprofit. Community Action Marin, the 6th biggest nonprofit in the state of California. And they net at the end have to pay the insurance, so we have to pay for the insurance, the workers, the cost of the wine, and some of the beer, they net at $1,500. But they say we're able to make some money, and all the restaurants do well. But this, I am actually going to fight myself, and I would love to do one next year or the year after, but if this new policy, I told Almore that same thing last year when I sat down with them before any of this. I said, Al, if it prohibited boxing, I wouldn't even wait a minute. But they've done something very similar that went well, and this will go well. I've done it for 20 years, and I've been a co-promoter, you know, with somebody and then for one myself. And I know what I'm doing, and it'll be very professionally done and well. And I work with the police, et cetera, et cetera. But anyhow, so if you see that way after the new policy, so be it, you know. But for myself, I'm glad on my last 2 fights in my career. Hopefully a fight here at Albert's and one somewhere, whether it be at Wynn or elsewhere.
Any other commissioners have questions?
Were there any problems before or after the fight? The last,
I have heard of none other than the little bit of noise. Gary, when we had next meeting,
was
I
that
don't
the
know.
biggest complaint from when you did it the last week?
I'm sorry?
Was that the biggest complaint that you had?
That was supposedly the only complaint. I mean, somebody might got mad and heard that the darn company came with, there's a type of, and what is it that they use when you have beer kegs? There's a thing they use, depressurize it or makes it so it flows good. The tank.
The CO2 tank.
Yeah, CO2 tank. And the guy brought a couple cement tanks. They ended up on the way while I borrowed two from, what is unfortunately drum? Broken drum. But they just hit their beer faster, but it might have been a good thing. We also had to make a plan about too much alcohol, it's beer and wine only. But I don't know, I'm happy. There was 1,000 to 1,200. If she says that or something, she's probably right. You know, but the paper estimates 1,200. I think it's right around 1,000. And most of them with the cheaper seats in the grandstand.
All right, thank you very much, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
People had some comments. As I mentioned before, you can stand in your place if you're one discomfortable. Kind of keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Appreciate it.
Be happy to. My name is Len Rifkind, and I'm a friend of Paul's, and I happen to be the current mayor of Larkspur. And I first met Paul in 8th grade. We both grew up here, and I was the champion of my weight class in wrestling from Santa Benicia Middle School, and Paul, unfortunately, was the champion of the same weight class from Davidson, and I will not tell you who won the match, but it wasn't me. In 8th grade, and we ended up wrestling together for 4 years in the San Rafael High School wrestling team, and so we've been friends ever since. And we have another high school colleague standing behind me in Boston who has a couple markets around, and so we're here to support Paul. What I think that the Parks and Rec Commission should consider the most key points, I think, of what we heard is, number one, we've had a trial run of this, so we know that it works. And that's probably, you know, we don't have to, this commission doesn't have to guess, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, because we actually heard, per what Mr. McCart said, it basically went off without a hitch, and we actually didn't learn about the noise issues until the city was addressing, trying to figure out what we were going to do about the civics and baseball, and that's where the noise complaints came from. And certainly what the noise was basically, it wasn't from actually the crowd, it was from the sound system. So obviously that can be mitigated so that we do not repeat that issue this year. I'll just call your attention to the resolution that the city council passed last year, and they make findings, of course, before you have a resolution. And the first finding is that the council finds that anticipated attendance of approximately 1,500 persons. We heard 1,000 or 1,200, and I hope for Paul's sake he gets 1,500. At the proposed event is consistent with occasional other historic uses of the park. That's key finding number one. Key finding number two is the council finds that the proposed boxing use would be consistent with the historical use of the park. And key finding number three is that the council found that a professional boxing event with condition should go forward. So we've kind of all done this. I heard Commissioner Holmes' question, like, are you going to do this again? And of course, you give this guy a chance, of course he's going to do this again, but for our sake, we hope that he's not going to personally box too much anymore. I mean, you know, I'm 51 too, and I wouldn't get in the ring. But the city is correctly trying to determine a new policy. I get the concept of new policies, and maybe boxing will or won't be permitted under the new policy. It remains to be seen what it is. But you have a pending application before you. Right now it's been pending since April 30th, and we hope that we can get an approval from the commission that says, you know, a recommendation at least from the commission that says to the city council, yeah, we think this is a good idea. One more time, under the same conditions that we had last year. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Andy Bontich. I'm a local business guy and also 8th grade with Paul. You know, this is just not anybody that we're asking you to approve this for. I mean, this is a guy that St. Raphael's walked to Davidson, you know, San Rafael High. I think his parents came over to Mayflower. And this is these guys, bocce courts. I mean, it goes on and on with the Nave. And I think it's a legacy. I mean, it's unbelievable, this guy. I mean, I boxed with him 30 years ago. I can't even imagine, you know, boxing anymore. I'm taking my grandson to the fight, which is really a crack up. I think 100 years from now, they're going to read these things in the paper about this guy in San Rafael, the oldest boxer ever, you know, and they're going to chuckle about it, this local guy. So I just think it's such a great thing for our town. This is what local towns are about. Paul's about the locals, they come, and he does bring business. Every time he has a fight, I run into everybody I went to school with, and they come out of the woodwork. So, and I think, you know, and I've thrown a lot of events, and I don't care how good they go, there's always a couple people that complain about the noise when we do these huge fundraisers for the schools. I think you're going to have a lot less, you know, even if there's a few people after having the baseball there, they're kind of broken in now a bit. They didn't want the baseball to happen, some of those people. So I'm hoping that you guys approve it, and I think it'll be a great event. So thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you, Mr. Priest.
Hi, Samantha Sargent. First of all, I wanted to read the resolution on behalf of the GPNA as the GPNA board adjunct, so very short. The Gershel Park Neighborhood Association supports the September 14th Paul Nave boxing event in the Albert Park, provided that the sound issues Friends public address system pointed towards Uphill residents, and it was too loud to be rectified. So that's from the
That's from the neighborhood association?
Gershel Park Neighborhood Association. I don't know if they had time to email it to you, but I can provide it to you in writing if you'd like.
Is that a vote of the board? Of the
Yes, it's a
directors?
vote of the board.
What was the vote count on that? It was 4 and against?
It was 3 in favor, 2 abstentions. That's a resolution. They did that outside the normal board meeting to accommodate the time frame.
How do you see outside?
I mean, we convened, I believe they convened a little special meeting to address this.
But that represents all of the members of the association?
It's the resolution of the board of the neighborhood association. Insofar as our neighborhood associations represent the neighborhoods, yes.
Do you have further comments?
Yes. Personally, as myself, Samantha Sargent, and a neighbor of the Recreation Center, I had a few points. I'm in favor of the boxing event. The last event was not only successful, but it was very enjoyable. As far as the compatibility issues, I'm not sure what you guys are looking at there, but if we can do, you know, obviously boxing worked out Liberty Boxing took care of the field, they did a lot of preparation to protect everything. So things like that worked out, and you know, when I say as far as compatibility, I mean if we're doing volleyball and other things there, you know, it sounds like other sports are compatible with our field, and the boxing event was one of them. As was mentioned, it did draw a lot of business to our downtown, which was great, and it gave the downtown merchants, you know, a boost, which they really need in these economies. They're very happy about that. And also, I'd like to say that it fits into one of the visions for our city that the city council discussed at their retreat early in the year, which was, as our town is developing, is kind of an entertainment hub. Now we've got the Terrapin, we've got baseball. You know, it's nice to have something, mix it up a little bit, the boxing event. So that's another, you know, plus for it. I'm sure that the noise issues we've all said could be addressed and resolved, maybe however using PA we're using now. The noise from any event is going to depend on where you are around the park. So on this side, it's quieter than on other sides. And as you've said, as Andy said, somebody always complains about noise. It was no more noisier than any of the events that happened at the recreation center, which happened frequently throughout the summer. If the field is not being rented to anybody else and we have no other prospective renters, and it works out and it preserves our field and doesn't wreck it, why would we not take the opportunity for those costs as, you know, the rental income? And my last point is about the frequency. I don't really see what it matters if Paul wants to do this next year or somebody else wants to do it next year. If we're finding that boxing fits in with, you know, works with our field, we're not wrecking it, we're getting income, our businesses are winning, the people are enjoying the sport, it's adding to the whole ambiance of our city as being a host for entertainment. And anybody else comes up, as long as people are willing to take care of our field, respect our city, and have their events in a responsible, you know, successful way that doesn't damage our neighborhoods or our city, I would say that, you know, we should explore those abilities. So I'd like to ask you guys to vote in favor of supporting the boxing event.
Thank you, Samantha. We have some more people who want to add to this.
Good evening. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you guys about the proposed Paul Nave boxing event. My name is Mario Tega Jr. I've, for the last 7 years, been the Northern California correspondent for boxing news site 15rounds.com. In that capacity, I've attended all 5 of the Liberty boxing events that Nave himself has competed and promoted in San Rafael, including the one last year at Albert Park Field. It's my hope that I understand that a member of the commission was able to attend the last event at the park. I expect that public safety is perhaps the chief concern of the commission when approving special events to take place at the park. As anyone that has attended any of Paul's events can recount, the safety of his customers is one of Paul's top priorities. At every event, there has been a strong law enforcement and security presence from well before, during, and after each event. And to the best of my knowledge, each of these 5 events since his return in 2009 have gone on without incident. Also feel commentary needs to be made about the type of crowd Paul's events attract. I have a feeling there may be a negative stereotype for what a boxing crowd usually looks like and how one typically behaves. However, Paul's crowds have definitely not fit that stereotype. The crowds have been made up mainly of friends and family of the competitors themselves, and in large part have seemingly been friends and family of Paul Nave himself. Crowds like these rarely do things that would embarrass the competitors who are applying their trade and attempting to better their lives through the sport of boxing. For these reasons and numerous others, I feel it would be wise to approve Paul Nave and allow the city of San Rafael to benefit from another one of his professional events. I understand just listening to this meeting, I understand that one of the main questions is if he's going to do this many more times, and I've not had this conversation with him recently, but my sense is that once Paul's fighting career is over, considering all the hard work and money and time and effort it takes to do these events, and the fact that he's not a very large staffed company, I don't think Paul's going to promote after his career is over, and that at his age, and he just said today he's got 2 fights left in him. I don't think you have to worry much more about more than 1 or 2 more events at this park, promoted by Paul himself anyway. So if that's the main concern of the commission, I don't think that's much to worry about. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. What was your name again?
Mario Ortega?
Mario. Thank you, Mario. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm David Tomes. I work the event. Basically, we got there in the morning. We had the place set up, made sure that everybody was safe, and all the food vendors are set up, the beer was set up, all the chairs are set up, made sure everything was clean, straight, organized from start to finish. There wasn't a hitch in the whole thing. In so doing, I was looking around and I'm like, where are we going to have the boxers changed? Well, the rooms in there are filled with junk. And we looked in the other rooms, you know, the old dugouts, old lead paint and everything, and I'm like, man, they fought really hard not to make this event happen in a ghetto stadium. I'm like, what is this? Well, why we gotta go through this? So anyway, we proved ourselves, we went in there, made the whole event happen without one single hitch, and was out of there without one single speck of garbage on the ground. Another suggestion is, if you have all these people here, you would think we're having a boxing match at Pac-Bell Park or something. Why don't we take all you guys and put you in the middle of the ring and let's have the meeting there while the fans are there. You can ask how everybody enjoys this particular event. It was not, there was people saying, I love this. People were there with their kids. There's not one single squabble, none of that. So I was there and I'll be there again.
All right, thank you, David. Any other comments? I know we do have 2 emails for the record. Lyndon and Robert Raines have sent an email. They live on Mariposa Street behind the park, and basically they complained about noise. The other was from Jennifer Northman Alpin on C Street. Also basically said the noise was a concern. So for the record, those are 2 emails received. And Samantha, we would like to have a copy of
Yes.
the Crystal Park communication. Commission members, we'll have a discussion among the commission now, and then we'll make a decision. So anybody ready to start?
I'll start. I attended the event last year, and I found it to be nice, enjoyable. People seem to be, in great spirits. And I lived in Bret Harte, and you could hear it was more of the crowd than the PA announcements, but both of them were noticeable. But I mean, you live in the city of San Rafael, you don't live in a hamlet or a village, so a little bit of noise is I guess, for me personally, acceptable on certain occasions. I think it's tough to compare boxing and baseball for the use of the facility because it is a baseball field, so it's not the exact same thing as baseball. I mean, it's built for baseball, not for boxing. So that is an issue. I'm also concerned that that our facilities, our parks, not be a negative to our neighborhood. That events we host would make it a negative experience to live near our parks, because that's kind of not our goal. We want to have our parks be a positive thing and actually improve the neighborhoods. And I'd hate if we start having more events, different events. If we started to make every dime we could out of Albert's Park, I'm sure it would create a negative impact on our neighbors, and I would never want that to happen because it should be seen as something positive in Albert's Park. But I think it's interesting that the neighborhood association, Crystal Park neighborhood, the closest, was in favor of this event. Again, I think that weighs heavily on my vote. I said that the neighbors are for it. I hope that would be the same sentiment for other activities.
Thank you, Jeff. You have some comments?
I kind of feel the same way. I really do. It sounds, I wasn't there, I wasn't in town. Otherwise, I would have been there. I'm a boxing fan. And I'm sorry I missed it, but it sounds like it was a really well-run event and went off without a hitch. And since we really don't have a policy of what should or shouldn't be going on there, I really don't see any reason why it shouldn't happen again.
You know, my feeling, first of all, I want to take exception to the field being called a ghetto park.
I like that one.
Yeah, no, yeah, I did. But in all, you know, all of what I've heard, it seems to be that the event turned out well. It's good for the city, good for the neighborhood, good for all the people involved. And so, until I think, I would say that until we have a set policy, if we're gonna redo our policy, then we should redo it. But since Mr. Nave's got something on the table now, that I don't think that us having to do that should not enable him to have his event.
Mark?
Yeah, actually, for me, it's the local flavor. I'll have to confess that was Andy, since I shop at Andy's Market, and I know he's behind like every local fundraising event I see him at. That means a lot that, you know, it's a local event using a local facility, and I kind of fall on that line where, yeah, we're working towards a policy, but we're not there yet. And since, as Mark said, it's on the table, it's before the commission. And final point, the neighborhood association, who's clearly the most impacted, being in favor of it is definitely all positive for me.
Eric?
I seem to recall that the majority of the complaints that came in about the sound system were from the picnic hill area because the two speakers were pointed out. So Paul made, I think, a compelling statement. You can remove those particular speakers from the event. I think that would help with reducing the number of complaints that might be coming. I'm delighted to hear that the local neighborhood group is in favor of it. And I think the policy we have in place right now wouldn't preclude it. And I think we should move forward with that.
Okay, well, I'm struggling with this because we don't have a policy. This is a baseball field, and that's what it's designed for, and that's what it's used for. And I think this event more properly should be at the Marine Exhibit Hall or the Marine Veterans Auditorium or Petaluma Veterans Administration. That's where it's been before, and I've attended one at the Marine Veterans Administration was delightful there. So I'm really struggling with this, but we don't have a policy. So at this point, I'm inclined to vote for it with a strong condition, and that is that it's the last time until we have a policy, because this is a baseball field. It's designed for baseball. It's designed for supporting the recreation department activities, and that's what it's been doing for the last many years. I realize that Gorgeous George was here many years ago. I'm probably the only one that but yeah, he's an idol of mine when I was growing up. But I wish she'd come back because that would be a real fiasco. But I think I'm probably go ahead with supporting this for this time. But I am concerned about this. Commissioner Holm raised the question, and that is whether this is the last one. Now, Paul, I'm the native here of William II, and I can see you fighting until you're 71.
They won't let me do that.
You gotta get that 20th win. That's
I gotta go out of town with
His friends won't let him. Right?
Yeah.
But behind that, you're also a promoter too. You may stop fighting, but you may want, with all of your heart, to continue to promote such matches at Alpers Park, and that would bother me quite a bit if that were to be continued use for this. So,
Ralph, if I may, in addition to the setting of a policy in the future, we're also going to have to be looking at the lawsuit that's the usage of the park,
yes,
that's been filed. So I mean, that would also be a limiting factor. Potentially.
well,
I mean, if we were to
yeah, depending on how that comes out.
right.
If it's pursued or if it's definitive at all, if the appeal is denied, then there's no light shed on that at this point. So. All right, at this point then, call for a vote of all those in favor of recommending to the city council that this event for this year, the application of Mr. Nave be approved. So all in favor say aye, or raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Carly, can I have to, I hate to interrupt.
No,
I thought if you're late and can't vote, was that?
You weren't late enough.
I just want to make sure, so I want to follow the Robert's rules or whatever, so.
but you can't get out of it.
Robert's not here.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll need you to repeat the motion for me, and then I didn't get the second.
Okay, so you want a formal motion?
I'll make a formal motion. We approve or recommend to the council that they approve the use of Albert Park by Liberty Boxing. For the use.
Have a second? Okay. Generally, you'll notice that chairs don't make motions, so that's why I backed out of that. So it's moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Look forward to it.
Thank you.